Hey guys, welcome back. Matt Hetherington from MHTableTennis.com here with another coaching tutorial, and in today's video I want to look at the long push, which I think for the developing and intermediate level of table tennis is one of the most underrated shots and underdeveloped shots in table tennis. I'm going to potentially eliminate it more from the top end for players, for the high level table tennis and professional players. Long pushing has really been almost removed from the international game. It's not very common anymore because of the amount of power and athleticism there is now, and the game is much more aggressive. I learned that the hard way when I played the World Championships in 2016. Long pushing, not particularly effective. You're basically giving someone a free third ball attack opportunity. But for the majority of people who watch these videos, this is probably going to be quite relevant. The long push, I feel, has often been focused on too much as a simple return. It's often a reactive shot. Players that get into rallies pushing all the time, you really want to avoid that. This is a sport now where you need to take the initiative in order to get the upper hand in a point. And so my main goals when I'm teaching students about the long push is to make it a shot that has a purpose and to make it a shot that has some intention behind it. So without further ado, let's get into it. With the long push, first of all, you're more likely to be dealing with a short receive. If the ball's going long, I would recommend, unless you're playing a chopper who's not very aggressive, that you open the first ball. Anytime the ball goes long, that's an opportunity to start playing topspin. So my focus here is playing long against the short ball. Obviously, we need to get into position. Whether you're playing backhand or forehand, your goal is to get the foot under the table. If it's coming wide, obviously you need to move this other foot, but you need to get low to the table, elbow low to the table, head and shoulders close to the ball, whether it's backhand or forehand. And with the long push, the focuses that you want to look at, first of all, reducing a backswing. Okay, if we want to make a good long push, we do not want to draw the stroke out and make it slow. So we're going to get our racket here, bring it back a tiny bit, and then push forward. Most of the focus is on pushing forward. Okay, so instead of drawing it out like this, or playing a long, slow stroke that's going to have no rotational speed on it, we want to get close to the ball, bring it back a little bit, and then go. You need to have that forward momentum. And that comes a lot as well through kind of pushing forward through here, through your toe and through your hip, so you can push in here. And that helps you get more depth and more speed on the ball. So I want to focus on 4 things. And I like to keep these lessons into short points that you guys can digest. 4 things: depth, spin, speed, and placement. Those are your 4 key areas for the long push. Let's start off with depth. Pretty simple stuff. We want to add enough force behind the ball that we're getting deep on the table, as deep as possible. There is a big difference between a player opening up against a ball that's bouncing maybe around here, where they can turn their body weight into the ball, and a ball that's landing right in front of them. Okay, you want to put some pressure on them, you need to get the ball as deep as possible. And that really comes from creating some force in the push. So soft, long floating pushes often go shallow, and if they don't go shallow and they do get depth, there's usually really no quality in them at all. The next 2 elements kind of go hand in hand, and they're spin and speed. This comes from generating friction in your shot, and it's built up by being quick. So the contact has to be quick, there has to be a bite to the ball. We don't want to just return the ball softly or kind of cradle the ball. You have to get in close to the ball and really generate quite a sharp action in a short space of time. The next 2 elements go hand in hand, speed and spin. Okay, so that comes from creating quite a sharp contact. So we're getting in close to the ball and we're generating kind of like a bite. There's a real bite to the contact. So it's a sharp movement forward. We need a lot of quickness to create friction, and that also helps with the speed. So there's a lot of things that you have to adapt with angle work. and that's based on the incoming ball. I'd say the safe place to start is 45 degrees when you're practicing this, and then you can play around with some more angles. So you need to create an angle that's balanced between creating spin and having that forward momentum that's going to get the ball deep and quick on the table. Here are some basic serve returns. I'm just practicing returning that sharp push against the serve. This is something that you guys can do if you see somebody practicing underspin serves. It's a great opportunity. Isolate your serve receives. Work on those areas when you have that opportunity. It doesn't always have to be in practice sessions or during drills. You can practice your serve receive and isolate just to work on those areas by pairing with someone who's practicing their serve. So thankfully, Adam Hugh was around from Hoboken Table Tennis, and he was able to serve some for me so I can demonstrate some long pushes. The last thing that I want to focus on with those 4 areas is placement, and it comes back to the goals of the long push. What are the goals? And getting your opponent off balance or forcing errors, disrupting the weight transfer so they can't play with a lot of power. It's very important that your placement is well thought out so that you can combine these 4 elements together. If you get 3 of the elements and you play a good heavy long push that's deep on the table and is quite quick, if it's to an area where the opponent's waiting or they're comfortable playing, it still doesn't really have the desired effect that you might want. So having that placement combination is important. You need to target weak areas where the opponent's weak at opening. So some players in the backhand side, maybe in the body or wide on the forehand, for example. These are areas that you could target depending on who you're playing. But the placement element is very important. You've got to put those 4 elements together for this to work. My goals when playing long push against club level players or players in tournaments in the US, I don't want my opponent to be able to open with full power. If I can get them down to like 50 or 60% on that first opening ball, that to me is a win. And I want that to be the best case scenario for them. So if the best that they can do is open at 50 or 60%, my long push has been effective. So that's their best case scenario. And there's a range of options that they have below that, which are going to help me even more. So if they're not able to open, a lot of the times they're going to opt to push. If they feel like there's too much spin or they weren't prepared, their reaction is to try and control the backspin and to push. That's good because that gives me an opportunity to attack, and also if I play really heavy, a lot of the time they have to float the ball more to counteract the spin. They can't push hard back, otherwise it's going to go on the bottom of the net. The third option for me, or the third response that I look for, is putting them off balance or out of position. So if they can get to a ball here and open, if they're off balance or still moving this way, that's a reasonable result for me. I'd be happy with that from a long push. Then of course the last thing is that they make an error straight away. And for me, that's the gold standard. So if I can make a long push and my opponent makes a mistake straight away, that is a free point achieved by a very simple means. So players who aren't quick enough to react, or they're not able to lift that ball or use their body to loop through that first ball, or they push and it goes in the bottom of the net, those for me are really the responses that I desire the most, because it saves energy from me. I don't have to do that much to get to that point, and I can move on to the next point. And also it's a great confidence booster. If I play these shots and my opponent can't open the ball, they can't even make that first topspin, then that really fills me with confidence because I know that it's probably going to start affecting them mentally. So yeah, there's a lot of different outcomes from using a good long push, but I think you'll find the differences between having a good long push and having a not so good long push are very vast. So the responses you'll get if your long push is soft or high or slow, you're going to be dealing with some very difficult shots, especially against the more aggressive or powerful opponents. Here's an example of a drill that you can use to practice. It's a very simple one, but I think it's probably one of the more effective ones. It's simply a point played from a short backspin serve and a long push. Now, the thing that I like about this drill is that Adam knows that I'm going to push long. He doesn't know where I'm going to push long, and obviously he's not going to know the exact subtleties of the variations that I'm going to use, but he knows that the ball's coming long. And the fact that he knows really puts the pressure on me to start trying some different placements and different variations. And I really have to think about how I adapt my shots, my serve receive, how I change my placement, whether sometimes I try and add some side spin angles to the ball. I really have to try and innovate. I have to be very tactically aware of how he's responding each time. And I think this is a really good way, as simple as it is, of practicing that long push.
Oh, come on! Hey, come on now. Simple. Yeah.
That's lovely.
Whoa! What is him? Triple.
That was a good shot. That's the only drill that I'm going to use an example for today. I wanted to focus a lot more on the technical aspect and those 4 tips, building the depth, the spin, the speed, and the placement as focus areas. And hopefully that's something that's been useful to you and might cause you to think a little bit more about your own long push in matches and whether there are things that you can do to improve it. So hopefully this has been a useful video for you, as I hope with all of my videos. If you have any questions, reach out, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another video.